thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Why I Love Flagler County, your local podcast spotlighting local businesses and local residents on what they love about being a part of Flagler County. So today I'm super excited to have my guest Crystal with us today. Crystal, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Of course. Well, there's a lot of great things that you're doing. I didn't get a chance to fully finish it, but I did go through a few of the chapters that you sent me of the book that you sent me over, which I super again, thank you for that. But we'll kind of get into that in a second, but we know each other. You go to church with my parents, and they were talking about your upcoming book, which is just a really exciting and amazing title, subject, the whole 9 yards. But why don't we start off easy and just you can kind of tell me a little bit about your journey coming here to Flagler County and how's that been for you?
Um, it's been an adventure. So we moved here from Wyoming, Nebraska area. So this is very different, except the agriculture side. Like there's quite a lot of agriculture in Florida, which is a little bit unexpected. Although the kids I worked with in Wyoming definitely told me they're like, no, there's more cows in Florida than anybody knows. And I was like, wow, okay. And then we were looking in different places and we just fell in love with Flagler County. It just has such a peaceful atmosphere. And when I was working, I used to work for a group called Young Life, and we would do trainings, and a lot of our trainings were in Flagler County. And the first time I came here, I was just in awe of the trees and the moss growing, because especially if you've been to Wyoming or Nebraska, there's not a lot of trees. And there's definitely not moss growing, or what are they? The air plants, I guess is what they actually are. And yeah, so anyway, it just felt magical. Everything here I feel like I'm living in a fairy tale.
Yeah, I didn't know that about Wyoming and Nebraska. I guess maybe I should, but it's really interesting to hear that it was so different for you. And the kids are totally right about there's a bunch of cows. I think people will be very surprised. Like I always make a joke whenever I drive through Ocala, it's Ocala because of all the cows are there.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There's always something going on, but that's super cool. How long have you been here in Flagler?
We moved here in October. So October 1st we arrived. Yeah. So
So
not
you
very
guys are
long.
very new.
Whoopsies.
Oh yeah. I feel like it's very rare. I've been here about 2 years. I think it's kind of rare nowadays that people have been here less than me. I feel like most people have been here for like 3 or 4 years. I feel like that's the average. But
Yeah.
that's awesome. So you guys are about to go into your first Florida summer too.
Yes. Yeah, we are.
Thoughts and prayers on that. Well, I'd love to know a little bit about the book. So, I mean, I'll let you kind of tell the journey of what inspired you to even start writing this book.
Yeah. Well, I have worked with teenagers for 20 plus years, and always I have found that the most important person in their life is their parents. And so if I really wanted to help a kid, I always knew that I also needed to build a relationship with their parents. And I found over the years that I would have these conversations over and over again with parents where they just feel so alone, and they always feel like they're the only ones who are going through this and embarrassed by what's going on with their kids. And so when I started writing this book, it just sort of happened. I knew I wanted to write a book. I thought I was actually going to write a novel. And then I had just retired from youth ministry, and it was just on my heart and on my mind and all these things. And I realized everyone in their house has a bathroom and everyone uses it all the time and no one talks about it. And the funniest stories often happen there, and the most embarrassing. And I was like, in the teenage years, it's the same thing. It's like they're like the embarrassing years of the family life in a way, because they put it all out there and they don't care what anybody thinks. And they're definitely not putting their best foot forward. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. And so then parents get so embarrassed sometimes to be like, well, my kid isn't perfect, or my kid isn't. And they have these expectations of themselves. And so I wanted to write a book that would give just encouragement to parents and people who work with teenagers. But I also remember having a crazy teenage years myself and just feeling so insane as a teenager. And when I started working with teens, and I did a lot of drug and alcohol prevention education, and so we studied the teen brain. And when I started learning about the teen brain, I was like, oh, I wasn't crazy. That was my brain. And it was a game changer for me. And so over the years, I found even with kids, if I'm like, all right, guys, this is what's going on. The reason you felt this way is because your brain, your amygdala is 3 times the size of a normal amygdala. So you constantly feel like you're under attack. So now suddenly the sound of your parents' voice is why you hate them, even though you also love them, but you also hate them. Like that's your amygdala. Um, you think everybody's staring at you all the time, but they're not actually. That's your amygdala. It makes you feel like you're under attack because it's tripled in size. And the amygdala is like the lizard part of your brain. It like keeps you alive. It's just very reactionary and there's no rational thought to it. And so I just wanted to give tools and tips to parents and even teenagers. And then I talked to some of the teens that I worked with over the years, and I was like, what are things that we did trainings on that you loved that you think I should put in this book, you think would be good for parents? So some of the chapters are my own experience. Some are things that teenagers are like, please tell parents this. Some are, these are the brain development things. But I wanted it to be funny so you could laugh and also educational and engaging. So
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And I really love, being able to help with that, Adrian, because I mean, I was there not too long ago. I'm sure people can figure that out. And it's a very tumultuous time for anyone. It's when you have to make like the most important decisions of your life, which is like college. What do you want to do for the rest of your life? And you're so emotional and everyone just feels so judgmental all the time. And it's like, oh my God, how am I supposed to like navigate this world that feels like it's just constantly working against me? But as you just described, it's really not a lot of the logical things. It's really not trying to work against you. It's just kind of, how things are set up, but also looking at your brain and being like, oh, it's not all on me. It's not because of something I did was good or bad. It's just the way that my body is working during this time in my life. So it's awesome you're able to figure that out and help explain that to kids because that's a very hard thing I think to find out almost.
yeah, I
Yeah.
one of the another really big one was so basically what happens is when you hit puberty, your brain has a growth spurt similar to a 2 year old. So when a lot of times if you've ever babysat, you'll have these like sweet babies and they're so angelic, and then they call it the terrible twos, but it sometimes hits around three. That just varies. That's basically what happens in the teenage years, and so literally the brain just makes all these billions and billions of connections, and then it starts trimming back and cutting things back. And so
Mhm.
plus all of the hormones change, plus the amygdala triples in size, plus your dopamine and serotonin dip, so you feel depressed. So you have like everything happening at once, and you really do feel a little bit like an alien in your body as a teenager. And so just having someone explain that was like, oh, so when I had like no energy and I felt super depressed, like that was because I was supposed to go, it's like supposed to make you go and play and be more active so that you use the connections in your brain. And was like,
Yeah, I
that was,
really, yeah, no, that's so cool to learn. Because I mean, the way that you're describing, like, oh yeah, I felt like that. Those are some of the things that I had to do a lot too. Is like I would get really like, if the room was really dark and I had to learn to force myself to like go somewhere else, go do something else, or like my
yes,
parents like, oh, we should go outside. I'm like, I don't want to go outside. I can't do it right now. And they're like, trust me, you'll feel better when you go outside. And then I did, and I just didn't want to tell them because it's like, yeah, well, mom and dad were right. Let's not let them know. Everything you're saying, like, oh yeah, I remember feeling all of those things. So it's super helpful to have someone explain it in a way that makes sense, especially when it comes to your brain. It's like, oh, it's not like there's a defect inside me. There's not something wrong. It's just we're going through a changing time in our life emotionally, physically, and everything else.
yes. You're not crazy. You're normal.
Yes.
And then when you do that and like that, going outside and recognizing it's real, you actually create a neural connection. And so then
Mm.
for the rest of your life, your brain will remember that neural connection. And you'll remember when I'm in a dark place, if I go outside, I'll feel better. So it's so important to actually like force kids to go and do some of those things,
Mm.
or they never make the connection and they get
Yeah.
stuck in these dark, angsty places. So,
That's just because I mean I tell people that that's what I did a lot as a teen, and that's how like now knowing things about me, it's like, oh, I really don't want to go this place, but I'm like, okay, I know I just have to like push past this feeling of not wanting to go somewhere, and then I go there and I have fun or I enjoy it or there's at least something I can walk away and be like, okay, at least I did this there,
yes,
and I just like, okay, I have to remind myself these past like it was fine the past 50 times. I'm sure this 51st time will be just as fine as the rest of them. So I can push through, I can keep going. So all is well. So that's awesome. Are there anything else like for anyone who's interested in learning more about the book, for reading the book, is there anything that you tell maybe parents or teens, something that they can kind of get out of that book other than what we kind of already talked about?
I think the biggest thing that I try to put in, I have about 2 chapters on it. It's called Building Your Tribe. And that parents need people in their life to kind of come around them and that they're honest and real with and who they let speak into their lives. Because you get so caught up in your kids and in your life and everything that's happening. And if you don't let anyone else speak into your life, then you'll just rabbit hole down, and you need people who can
Mm,
come in and be like, no, you are doing a good job. Hey, I know your story. Okay, you messed up. Yeah, but you know what? It's going to be okay. And so parents need a tribe of adults kind of helping them. And then they also need to build a tribe around their kids in a way that aren't just other teenagers, because
mm,
especially because the parent's voice for some reason can be so triggering for teens, which I think is just naturally built into us that teenagers will not live at home forever. Um, but if they have other, so I remember for myself, like, yeah, my parents would be like, hey, you need to go outside. I'd be like, oh, I don't want to go outside. But if the next door neighbor who I thought was super cool and was my mom's best friend was like, hey, you want to come over and like help me weed my garden? I was like, yeah, I do. I want to hang out with you. I want to go shopping with you. I want to do all these things with you that like if my mom asked me to do, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I hate you. And my mom could tell me something. I'm like, you're so stupid. But her best friend could tell me something. I'm like, yes, that is so good. So just like building, having people in your life that you allow other adults, especially that you know are good and safe adults that you can trust, especially during the teenage years. They can say things that you maybe can't and be there in a way that you can't, but kids still want their parents to be there. They still need their parents to be there. But that's where kind of the tribe comes in, where it's like everybody's saying the same thing, helping you make it through, supporting you, being there. So, you know, when you go out, you're not alone. Like your family is bigger than just the unit in your house. I think that's kind of just building that community around your kids is really huge.
yeah, I really love that because how I got into podcasting is about 3 years ago when I was 17, I started a podcast called What Would You Say to Your Younger Self? So I talked to over 200 business professionals just for 15 minutes on, they shared their story, shared their passions about their business and all of these things. And I logically knew a lot of the stuff they were talking about, especially like content wise or lessons learned. I really logically knew it. But hearing it from all of these people that I knew my dad trusted and knew that I could trust, it really everything I feel like hit home differently in a way that I never heard it before, right? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I know like logically how I should treat, a business, right? But it's like hearing it from someone else, just it changed a lot. I was like, oh yeah, I remember them telling me that. And I remember why this hits home. And, I was even a part of like a Bible study of women that my dad worked with. And I was the like youngest one there, but because I trusted them and I had a great relationship with all of them, they were able to tell me things. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sure
Yeah.
maybe my parents told me about this once here and there, but hearing it from them and we're talking about it and it's an engaging conversation, it really changed. And I learned so much from just being able to sit in on Bible studies once a week for a year or so.
Yeah. I think the biggest disservice that we do to our teenagers is that we sequester them into their age groups. And
Mm.
they want to be successful. They're so desperate to figure out how to navigate life and they're terrified of it. And when you start to hear the stories of older women and men and they share the struggles that they went through and the things that they overcame, and then suddenly you realize, oh, okay, well, if they overcame that, I can overcome this. This is nothing. And so yeah, you are so lucky that you had that. That is
I
amazing.
am. I know I am, and I feel lucky like every single day. I'm like, oh yeah, I understand why he pushed me so hard to do that. I feel so so glad that I did, right? I don't think I fully understood 3 years ago, but even in 3 years, which honestly is really not that long of a time, but with the age range I was, it feels like it was such a long time ago. I know that it's grown a lot, so it's been really great. But yeah, everything you're saying is really hitting home. It's like, yeah, that's everything that my dad did. I was lucky enough to go through. So it's really awesome. Well, Crystal, I know you've not been in Flagler very long, but is there anything you like to do when you get to go out of the house? Any places to go, events, groups, anything like that?
Yeah, we love going down to Flagler Beach, in particular, like the pier and the Funky Pelican. And my favorite though is, oh, what's it called? Oh, I have so many favorites actually. Okay, so there's the Rag Surf Cafe that's over by Marineland. I don't know if you've been there,
Not
but
one.
okay. Oh my gosh, this is incredible. You go at sunrise and they
Okay.
open at 7 a.m. So it's best in the fall because you don't have to wake up that early to see sunrise. But they have this coffee shop. It's out of a bus. They have like a snow cone place during the day with like fresh and acai bowls and ice cream and everything. And then they have another little like trailer that's like a store and it's super cute. And so I love going there because you literally sit on the beach and eat their phenomenal breakfast sandwiches and their coffee is super good. And I'm a coffee snob. So that was like my favorite Flagler experience is Ragged Surf Cafe over by Marineland. And then over on Sunday mornings. I can't remember the name of the shop, but it's literally across the street from the new Margaritaville. Like they share the same street. So it's on the, what would it be? The south side. And this lady has the cutest little clothing store and she does free mimosas and you can go and shop. And then there's another little coffee shop next to them that has like the best vibe. It's shoot, I can't remember the name of it. Wow, I'm really,
Is it Yes Coffee?
it might be Yes Coffee. Yeah. It's
Yes
like,
Coffee is next to Uncorked Winery. It's next to the Raw Juice Cafe.
um,
Um, it would be
yes,
like,
yes.
okay,
So it's the Raw Juice Cafe, and then you
okay,
go like down a couple of steps, and she has her clothing store with the free mimosas, and then you go a couple steps down from them, and
uh-huh,
then it's the coffee shop. So I kind of
okay,
like to hit all three,
yeah,
and it's so fun. And then go look at all the art stuff. And I just think the festivals, there's tons of festivals, and those are great ways to get to know people. And then, but the best friends I've made have been at church, just because people will do life with you, and you get together
yeah,
every week, and that has been the biggest game changer for us is
yeah.
church.
Yeah, it's a great place. It's a very community driven place. The church that you choose, and obviously you guys go to Parkview, or you guys know my parents from Parkview, and it's just a different type of connection. Like we can all do things, we can all bond over interests and stuff, but like you mentioned, doing life together, it really brings you closer quicker than maybe some other stuff as well. And having that shared belief and vested interest is awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Awesome. Well, Crystal, thank you so much for the time today. I learned a lot of great things. Most of all, that I was not a crazy teenager. I think I was, but it just like there was a reason it was so crazy. I appreciate you coming on and sharing this. I'll put all the information in the description on how you can get her brand new book that'll come out like right around the time that I release this podcast, which is going to be super, super exciting. So, Crystal, again, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. It was a total pleasure having you on.
Yes, so yeah, Toilet Tales, Surviving the Teenage Show. Um, and I think it'll be available on Barnes and Noble too. I have to ask my publisher about that. I know it'll be on Amazon, but I think they're also going to put it on Barnes and Noble. So
I'll make sure I have all the links in the description as I get them. So if you guys click it, then you can copy and paste, click on that a little easier. It would definitely recommend. It's a great book. And I've had a great time. So thank you again, Crystal. And to everyone listening, I really appreciate you as well. And I will see you next time.